Thank you. ॐ दक्षिणस्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्णपाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञानगुरुः सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. We are at present looking into some of the beautiful Advaita Parastotras composed by Bhagavan Shankaracharya. And we are going in a certain order so that we start from the beginning, from Purushartha Nishchaya, and then ultimately go to that highest level of understanding where I abide in my Atma Swarupa. So we have chosen, like Swamiji has chosen these, stotras in such a way that we are going step by step towards the final, the ultimate understanding of Aham Brahmasmi. And the first one we took, the first stotra we took was Mohamudgaraha or Bhajagovindam, which talked about various purusharthas, the human pursuits available to a human being, to a human jiva. And what is the advantage or what is the superiority of moksha purushartha over dharma artha kama purusharthas? The deficiencies, the doshas of dharma artha kama purusharthas were mentioned in detail, they were talked about, actually, they were described in detail, and then ultimately, there, Bhajagovindam tells a jiva, because of all these deficiencies in the other three Purusharthas, may you choose moksha as your Purushartha so that you are once and for all out of this bondage of samsara. So that was what is called as the Purushartha Nishchaya. That is, a mumukshu or a jiva decides that I am going to be a Tivra mumukshu, pursue this particular path, and whatever is necessary to pursue the moksha purushartha, I am going to take up all those sadhanas. Now, what are those sadhanas which are necessary for me to pursue moksha purushartha? Staying in my own varna and ashrama. I can't get out of my ashrama dharma, at least at that time it was so. To some extent, now also it is true in our own way, in a certain way. Now also we are bound to certain system at a particular age or a particular station in our lives, and then continuing to do our duties, continuing to fulfill our responsibilities, living in those stages of life, those so called the ashramas, which were very, very clear cut in those days. They may not be so clear cut and exclusive these days, but a kind of a mix up may be there. But still, the sadhanas that are talked about for the natural spiritual growth of a person in all the ashramas, on all the stages of one's life. Ashrama means stage of one's life. In the different stages of one's life, from brahmacharya ashrama to grahastha to vanaprastha to sannyasashrama, was very clearly given in the Sopana Panchakam or Sadhana Panchakam. Sopana Panchakam means step by step. This talked about, Bhagwan Shankaracharya talked about what is that I should do to pursue Moksha Purushartha. Yes, I have decided upon Moksha Purushartha. I'm a Tivra Mumukshu. And then what should I do for that? How is it that I'm going to, what kind of sadhanas, what kind of disciplines am I supposed to follow? Doing what am I doing? Being wherever I am, but those sadhanas which help me in pursuing my moksha purushartha and ultimately reaching the goal. That was what was talked about in the sadhana panchakam. Then we saw in the last session, we saw Prathasmaranam or Brahmanaha Prathasmaranam, where the teachings of the Upanishads is that you are this Brahman, Tat Tvam Asi. That Brahman which is in and through the whole universe, that Brahman or consciousness which is behind every body, mind, sense complex, every jiva, that Brahman or consciousness, which is the very support of the millions of names and forms that we see in the universe, that Atma, that Brahman, you are. This is the teaching of the Upanishads, and that teaching was talked about for the sake of Nididhyasana in three verses, what were called as the Brahmanaha Prathasmaranam. Now, the Upanishads also have another way of putting the same thing as to who I am, what is my reality, what is my real nature, what is my Swarupam. The Upanishads have another way of putting it across. Now, when we ask ourselves, who am I? When I say I, the I includes the body, the mind, the sense complexes, and the ahankara. We have already seen this in all the previous texts that we have taken. So when I say I, the I is a mixture of the anatma body mind sense complex and the consciousness or the chaitanya swarupa atma. So when I say I, this I is a very, very loose, vague mixture of the body mind sense complex and I, the consciousness. And the problem with me right now is when a mumukshu starts, the problem is that I am so, you know, tightly identified with this body mind sense complex that out of these two, out of this mixture of Atma Anatma, Atma, I, the consciousness Atma, which was talked about in Prathasmaranam as to what kind of an Atma Chaitanya Ahamasmi that I am. Right now, I do not know that. Because of the closeness or the proximity of the body mind sense complex Anatma, and the Chaitanya Atma, the Chaitanyam or Atma, there is always a mistaken notion that I am the body mind sense complex. I am the body, I am the mind, I am the sense complex, iti. There is always this kind of an identification with the body mind sense complex. And I am this Atma Swarupa. I am this Chaitanya Atma is something which I am not able to understand. Though we have seen it in Pratasmaranam, the ultimate teaching of the Upanishads is that you are that Atma. That is what we have seen it. Pratasmarami hrudi samspurat Atma Tattvam Sat Chit Sukham Paramahamsagatim Turiyam. Yat Swapna Jagara, we saw that. I don't want to repeat that. But then, how do we come to that? How do we come to abiding in this Atma Swarupam? What do we do about it? What we have to do is, right now, there is a mix up. There is a mix up between the Anatma body mind sense complex and the Atma consciousness Swarupa Atma, Chaitanya Swarupa Atma. And what the Upanishads have to do is they have to make me see and sort out the mix up. The mix up has to be sorted out, and the wrong notion has to be corrected So, whatever I have mistaken myself for out of this Anatma body mind sense complex and the Sakshi Chaitanya Atma combination, what is that real me? Am I this body mind sense complex, or am I this Chaitanya Swarupa Atma, the consciousness behind this body mind sense complex? There is this mix up. So, who am I? How to sort out this mix up? And this is what our scriptures tell us by using various types of teaching modules. And one of the most important teaching modules that the Upanishads talk about is what is called as the Drik Drishya Viveka. What is the meaning of Drik Drishya Viveka? That means our Upanishads say that whatever you see, whatever you experience is an object of your experience. The seer is not the seen. For example, I am seeing this book here. This is the seen object. I am the seer. I am not the book, because the book is an object of my perception. Who am I? I am the perceiver, the subject consciousness, or the Chaitanyam which perceives this book, understands this as a book, and does whatever Vyavahara has to be done with that particular book. Therefore, the most important teaching, one of the important methodologies of teaching, why I am saying all this is, we have already seen Panchakosha Viveka in Viveka Chudamani. We have already seen Shariratraya Viveka in Viveka Chudamani, also in Bhagavad Gita also. Correct? So here, whatever we are going to see now in the next two stotras that we are going to take, one is this Atma Shatkam that we are going to talk about. Then after that, another stotra we are going to take, where Bhagwan Shankaracharya is giving us the teachings of the Upanishad using this teaching methodology called as the Drik Drishya Viveka. So, what is the Drik Drishya Viveka? There are three things that are there in Drik Drishya Viveka. Three things are the most important summarizing factors, or three important factors are talked about in this Drik Drishya Viveka. What is the meaning of that? What it says is the drishyam, or the perceived object, or the object of experience, or the object of perception, is mistaken or mixed up with the very subject who perceives. Drik is the seer, or the perceiver, or the experiencer. So, what we have to understand, the seer consciousness, the experience consciousness, or the the what you call as the experience consciousness, perceiver consciousness, seer consciousness. Why am I using this word consciousness? Because there is a conscious principle, there is a conscious entity behind all the experiences, behind all the perceptions. Therefore, this drik means the perceiving, or the perceiver consciousness. That Chaitanya, or that you know consciousness which perceives whatever is there, understands whatever is there. What is that? That is called as the drik. And whatever is experienced, whatever is seen, is an object of my perception, which is called as the drishyam. And Vedanta says a drik can never be the drishyam. A drishyam can never be the drik. And ultimately, the Chaitanya Atma, which is the ultimate drik, is always a drik. It's always the perceiver consciousness. It can never be the object of perception. That is the first principle of teaching of Drik Drishya Viveka. Secondly, it says that if there are certain attributes that are experienced by me, for example, now I see this as blue book, blue. I'm perceiving a blue color here. It is an attribute. It's an attribute. I'm seeing this green colored sari. It is an attribute. So, any attribute that I experience in the form of color or form or whatever it is, various forms of attributes that I experience, they don't belong to me, the drik, they belong to the drishyam. So all the attributes belong to the drishyam and not to the drik. That means the object has all the attributes. The subject, the perceiver, is not affected in any way by these attributes. So you can say the object and the subject, the perceived object and the perceiver, the seen and the seer. So who am I? I am the seer. And whatever I see, whatever I experience is the object of my experience. And whatever attributes are there that I'm perceiving, they don't belong to me, the seer. The attributes belong to the object that is perceived. So the blueness belongs to the book here. The blueness does not belong to me. That is the second teaching of Trishya Viveka. Why I'm telling you is the next two stotras that we are going to talk about, including today's Atma Shatkam, maybe we may take 2 sessions for it. Now, this Atma Shatkam very much talks about this particular aspect of Vedantic teaching called as the Drik Drishya Viveka. So, first is the Drik is never the Drishyam. I have a book, I am not the book. I'm seeing a laptop in front of me, I'm not the laptop. So, my Vedanta guru used to say, if still you don't understand, I'm seeing a donkey, but I'm not a donkey. I have a donkey, but I'm not the donkey. This will be very clear. This by this you will understand, he would say. So, whatever I see, whatever I experience is an object of my experience. I am not that, first teaching. Any attributes like color, form, or whatever attributes, small, big, heavy and thin and tall, and whatever it is, whatever I see, those attributes belong to the object of perception and not to me, the subject. Second, they are actually very easy to understand if you understand. That's why I'm saying it again and again. Third thing is, any object that I see is made up of matter principle and it is bhautikam, pancha bhautikam, made up of the 5 elements. So all the objects that I see are elementals made up of the 5 elements. What about the drik, the experiencer consciousness? It is not an elemental, it is not matter principle. What is it then? It is the very subject consciousness. These are the 3 things that are told in Drik Drishya Viveka. These 3 are the principles on which this Drik Drishya Viveka is based. There are other things also. There are many other corollaries to this. We can add something. One is, that matter principle is constantly changing. The subject principle, consciousness, is not changing. And vikari, nirvikari, anekam, ekam, mithya, satyam, we can add all these things. There are many things which we can add to say the difference between the two. And ultimately, it says that the drishyam is anatma and the drik is atma. That which is an object of my perception, that which is made up of the 5 elements, that which has got attributes which constantly change, that is called as anatma. And I, the consciousness, which is the drik or the perceiver consciousness, which is ever the perceiver consciousness, which does not have any attributes, which is not the effect of the 5 elements. This is what is called as the drik, which is Atma. So, out of this Anatma and Atma, who am I? So, the work that we are going to see It's going to say that I am the Atma Tattvam. I am not the Anatma that I am seeing or perceiving. So, what does Anatma include now? The entire Jagat is Anatma. My body, mind, sense complex also is Anatma. So, in Atma Shatkam, which we are going to see, which is also called as the Nirvana Shatkam, this text, Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavan, is trying to tell me who I am. This is called as the Tvam Padartha Vichara, which we saw in Bhagavad Gita in the first 6 verses. As to who am I? Am I the Anatma body mind sense complex? Or am I the Chaitanya Atma? Am I that consciousness which is the perceiver of the body mind sense complex? Why is this body Anatma? That is going to be talked about. And who am I in this mixture of the Anatma body mind sense complex and the consciousness Svarupa Atma in consciousness I and the body mind sense complex Anatma I? Who is the real I? So here in Atma Shatkam, Bhagavan Shankaracharya says that perceiver consciousness, that Drik Swarupa, that Chaitanya Atma you are, which is the meaning of the Tvam in Tvattvamasi equation. Then what is this Anatma that you are seeing? It is an object of my perception. I, the perceiver, cannot be the perceived. I incidentally have a body, but I am not the body. I am incidentally associated with this body, but I am not the body. I am the Asanga Atma Swarupa. That is what is going to be talked about in this Atma Shatkam or Nirvana Shatkam. Shatkam means a group of 6. There are 6 verses in this. It's a small one, again a small stotra, but very, very loaded. And therefore, actually, I was thinking maybe I could do it in one session, but I had to give the introduction of what is the teaching behind this Atma Tattvam, behind the Atma Shatkam. So, therefore, now we'll go to this Nirvana Shatkam or Atma Shatkam. I will chant the first verse and I'll tell you what is the pattern that follows here. Okay, so मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कारचित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्. In all the 6 verses, the last line is the same. Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. This is the last line which is common in all the 6 verses. And all the 6 verses follow a certain pattern. What is that pattern? The first 3 lines, Bhagwan Shankaracharya describes what I am not. What I am not, that is described in the first 3 lines. They're called as the Nisheda Rupa Vakyas. Nisheda Rupa. That means what? I'm not. I'm not. Nisheda Rupena. Negating. The first 3 lines are negating what I am not. And the fourth line is asserting what I am. So the first 3 lines are negating that idea that I have that I am the body. This is my current understanding. I am the body, I am the mind, I am the sense complexes. This is my current understanding. So you are not the Anatma to say that the first 3 lines talk about you are not that, you are not that, you are not that. Okay, here he's talking from aham, that is what I am not. This is the nididhyasana that I have to do. So I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. I am not this Anatma. I am not this Anatma. I am not this Anatma. Then what am I? I am the very perceiver Atma. I am the Atma, which is ultimately the perceiver consciousness, the experiencer consciousness. Or that is how the common pattern of all these verses up till the verse 5 actually is there. Then in the verse 6, we find it's all the positive, Swarupa Lakshanas of I, the Atma. So here, Bhagwan Shankaracharya does not say you are not, says aham, aham. That means I have to understand it in the same way. I am not the Anatma body mind sense complex. I am the perceiver Atma. How he gives this, how he gives this understanding in the Shatkam, a group of 6 verses. I have already read what it means here, what the first verse is. I have already read that, chanted that. So now let us see what is the meaning of these verses. The Nisheda Vakyas will see, take first, what I am not. The fourth line is called as the Vidhi Rupa Vakya. That means the first 3 lines tell me what I am not, Nisheda Rupena. The fourth line tells me what I am, Vidhi Rupena. This is how I have to take it. And the Shruti tells me, okay, you are not that, you are not that, you are the Atma. When I understand it, how should I understand it? I am not this, I am not this, I am not this, but I am this Atma. Whatever I am seeing, whatever I am experiencing is an object of my perception. Therefore, I am not that. Then who am I? I am that very Chaitanya Swarupa Atma who is behind all the perceptions. That is what I am supposed to understand. Now, here, Bhagwan Shankaracharya starts with Sukshma Sharira. We have to remember a lot of Tattva Bodha here. What does Tattva Bodha say about the Atma? Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharira Vyatiriktaha. Atma Kaha. What is Atma? What is this Atma? Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharira Vyatiriktaha. This Atma is something other than the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. Panchakosha Vilakshanaha. This Atma is something which is different from the 5 koshas, Panchakosha Vilakshanaha. Then Avasthatraya Sakshi. It is not either the Jagrat Jiva or the Swapna Jiva or the Sushupta Jiva, but it is the Sakshi Chaitanya or the very witness consciousness of all the 3 avasthas. Then what is that Atma? It says Sat Chit Ananda Swarupaha. Okay, so the first 3 are what? Nishedha. Tattva says that. Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharira Vyatiriktaha. It is not the Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharira. Panchakosha Vilakshanaha. It is not the Panchakosha, something different from that. Avasthatraya Sakshi. It is not the Jagrit Avastha, Swapna Avastha, Sushupti Avastha Jiva, but it is the very consciousness or the Sakshi which is aware of the 3 avasthas. Then what is its Swarupam? Sat Chit Ananda Swarupaha San. So that is the nature of you, the Atma. That is how Atma is described in Tattva Bodha, and the same pattern is described here. And now, in the first verse, Bhagwan Shankaracharya is starting from Sukshma Sharira. Why is he starting from Sukshma Sharira? Probably by the time we come to Nirvana Shatkam, Bhagwan Shankaracharya must be feeling that we have studied enough of Vedanta, we have done enough of Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam, and therefore I am not the Sthula Sharira iti. It is quite obvious to these mumukshus. That must be the hope of Adi Shankaracharya, but that is a very difficult thing to understand because our identification with the Sthula Sharira is so strong, so strong. Forget about Sukshma Sharira. This body, the identification with this body is so strong. And for millions and millions of janmas, this identification has come about. And therefore, it is not that easy to just immediately understand I am not the body. To even go beyond this physical body or sthula shariram or annamaya kosha, it might require a lot of nididhyasana. It requires a lot of nididhyasana. So anyway, here Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavan starts with Sukshma Sharira. Sthula Shariram, he just mentions in the later, in the second verse, we have a small mention of it where we can say he probably indicates the Sthula Sharira. So what does he say here now? He says, Manaha Buddhi Ahankara Chittani Naham. I am not the Antakarana. Now we have to understand, you have to go back to Tattva Bodha. What are the components of Sukshma Sharira? The Sukshma Sharira components are 19 components. Sometimes it is taken as 17 also. What are they? Pancha Jnanendriyas, the organs of perception, 5. Pancha Karmendriyas, the 5 organs of action. Pancha Pranas, that is the 5 pranas, the 5 physiological pranas. And then the Antakarana, the inner instrument or Antakarana, which is functionally divided into Manaha, Buddhihi, Ahankaraha, and Chittaha, depending upon what function the Antakarana is doing. Manaha means what? When the Antakarana is doubting, vacillating, sankalpa, vikalpa, when there are emotions like raga, dvesha, these kind of emotions I am experiencing, that functional aspect of the Antakarana is called as the mind. Nishchayatmika buddhihi, when I take a certain decisive decision, that is the buddhi, that is the function of the buddhi. Ahankaraha, I am the doer, I am an individual, that individuality that I feel, and I feel I am the karta, I am the doer. This particular I am an individual doer. This is called as the ahankara. Chittaha is the memory, recollection or memory. Actually, I shouldn't be talking about all these things because these are all talked about in Tattva Bodha. So I shouldn't be talking about it, but I'm just reminding. So who am I? I'm not the Antakarana. Manaha Buddhihi Ahankara Chitta Rupi Antakarana Na Aham. Chittani Naham. Then न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे. I am not the 5 organs of perception or jnanendriyas. Shrotrindriya, I am not. Jihve, na cha grana. Okay, I am not the 5 organs of perception in the form of the eyes or the ears or the nose, the skin, and also the tasting tongue. Therefore, I am not the 5 organs of perception also. A part of Sukshma Sharira, correct? So 5 Jnanendriyas, I am not a part of that. Then he says, न च व्योम भूमिर्न तेजो न वायुः. And all these antakarana, the jnanendriyas, they are all formed from what? From the 5 elements. That is, what are the 5 elements? Akasha, Vayuhu, Agnihi, Apaha, Prithvi. These 5 elements are ultimately forming the entire Sukshma Sharira, Apanchikrita Panchamahabhutani. Apanchikrita. That means what? They are not grossified. Ungrossified 5 elements in various combinations give rise to the Sukshma Sharira. So, what is it? Which aspect of which element gives rise to what? You have to go back to Tattva Bodha. That I cannot talk about it here. You have to go back to Tattva Bodha. So, he says, Nacha Vyoma Bhumihi na Tejo na Vayuhu. I'm not the five elements which are responsible for the creation of this Sukshma Sharira. So, I'm not the Antakarana. I'm not the Jnanendriyas. I'm not the five elements which have gone into the formation or the creation of this Sukshma Sharira. Now, let us apply the principles of Dritrisha Viveka as I have told you. As I have told you earlier, let us. So, what is it now? The first principle. Whatever is experienced by me is an object of my experience. I am not that. Therefore, now, manaha I experience. I am aware of my mind. I am aware of the emotions of my mind. I am aware of the doubts of my mind. Correct? Buddhihi. I am aware when I take decisions. When the nishchaya has taken place, I am aware of that. Ahankara. I am aware of my individuality. Chittaha. I am aware of all the recollecting process that is going on in the antakarana. So I am the observer of my antakarana also, the inner instrument also. Second thing, what did I say? All the attributes that I perceive belong to the object of my perception. I'm aware when my sense organs are not working properly. Andhatvam, mandhatvam, patutvam. We saw that in Vivek Chudamani. When I have clear sense organs of perception, I there is something which knows. I say I can see clearly. I say I cannot see clearly. I say I am blind. Actually, I am not blind. I am seeing that the eyes are not able to see clearly, or the eyes are blind, or the eyes are seeing clearly. Therefore, all the attributes and properties of the sense organs and the mind also, I am able to witness. When I am sad, I am witnessing the sadness. When I have desire, I'm witnessing the desire. When I have anger, when I'm witnessing the desire. That means what? All these attributes or properties belong to the object of my perception, which is the antakarana and also the objects of perception. You understand what I'm saying? Second principle. The third principle is what? Pancha Bhautika. These are all Bhautika. These are made up or these are formed by a particular process of the five elements coming together. So Bhautikatvat, Drishyatvat, okay, and Sagunatvat. Guna, there is an attribute, there is a guna, there is a property, Sagunatvat. Therefore, the mind and the sense organs are the objects of my perception. Who am I? I am not the objects of my perception. Therefore, I am not the mana, buddhi, ahankaraha, chittaha. I am not the organs of perception like the five sensory organs of perception. I am not the five elements which have gone to form this Sukshma Sharira in a particular way, as told in the Tattva Bodha, we have to go that. Then, if I am not that, if I am not the components of Sukshma Sharira, which components? The Antakarana component and also the Jnanendriya component of I am not Drishyatvat, Sagunatvat, and Bhautikatvat. I am not the Mana Buddhi Ahankara Chitta and also the five organs of perception. I am not the five elements which have gone to form them. Then who am I? I am the Drik Swarupa Sakshi Chaitanya Swarupa Atma Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Chit Ananda Swarupaha. I am of the nature of consciousness, Chit. Ananda Swarupaha. I am of the nature of Purnatvam, Purnatva Swarupatma. Shivoham. I am the most auspicious. I am the highest, what is called as the Paramarthika Satyam. I'm the one who gives existence to everything around me in the form of consciousness. Therefore, I am the most auspicious. Shivoham, Shivoham. So I am the Drik Swarupa Atma. I am not the Drishya Swarupa Sukshma Sharira. I am not the Sukshma Sharira. Aham Naham. I am not that. So I have to do contemplation on this again and again and again to understand that I am not the Sukshma Sharira. Here he has started with Sukshma Sharira. But then we have to start from the main body itself. When there is disease in the body, when there is discomfort in the body, how I get entangled and I say, I am sick. I am not sick, the body is sick. Correct? All the attributes or the properties of the body belong to the body, the tallness, the shortness, the thinness, the fatness, the disease, health, all that belongs to the body. It does not belong to me. But what do I say? I am tall, I am thin, I am this, I am that. All these things. I am beautiful, I am ugly, I am dark, I am fair, I am sick. All this belongs to the body. All these attributes and properties belong to the body. They don't belong to me. Body is drishyam. It is panchabhautikam, five elements. All the properties and attributes belong to this body and not to me. That he has not very clearly mentioned here, but in the next verse, we get a glimpse of the Sthula Sharira that is being mentioned there. So, the Drik Drishya Viveka, three principles of Drik Drishya Viveka are here applied in negating I am not the mind and the sense organs, mind and the organs of perception. Next, we'll see the second verse. न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायुः न वा सप्तधातुर्न वा पञ्चकोशः न वाक्पाणिपादौ न चोपस्थपायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्. So what does he say here? Next he comes to the next organ of Sukshma Sharira, Pranaha. Pranaha. Nacha Prana Sanyo. That means I am not the group of pranas. I am not the prana. Why? Prana is also drishyam, drishyatvat. I can feel my prana going in and coming out. Correct? I can feel my digestion. I can say today my digestion is manda. I don't want to eat anything. Today my digestion has gone for a toss. Therefore, I have to be careful about my food. Correct? So, when I'm not able to breathe in and breathe out properly, then also I'm aware of it. When I'm sick and my prana weakness, my prana is weak, I'm aware of it. So, nacha prana sanyo. The prana aspect of the Sukshma Sharira also is the drishyam. It is an object of my perception. Therefore, I am not the prana. Nacha prana sanyo. Navai panchavayuhu. I am not the physiological prana also. I'm not the physiological prana also. What are the five types of pranas? Panchavayu. Vayu Vikara, which has given rise to the Pancha Pranas, what is that? That is prana, apana, vyana, samana, udana, what we can call as the physiology, not just the anatomy, but the physiological pranas. The prana is the physiology of the being. So this prana modifies itself into various types of physiological functions, which are called as the pancha pranas. I am not the digestive prana. Why? Because I am aware of my digestion. I am not the prana, apana, udana, samana. I am not any of these pancha pranas because I am aware of the condition of the functioning of my physiological pranas. Breathing, I am aware of. Difficulty in breathing, I am aware of. Change in the breathing, I am aware of. I am even able to consciously bring about changes in my breathing. I'm aware when something goes wrong with my digestive prana. When something goes wrong with my apana prana, the excretory prana, I am very much aware of it. There is no problem at all in knowing about it. Maybe you can say circulatory prana, I may not, that is okay. But various pancha pranas, they are the objects of my perception. They are the objects of my perception. Therefore, I cannot be the prana. The prana is an object of my perception. I am the perceiver consciousness. Therefore, I am not the prana. I am not the five types of physiological vayu vikaras also. Nava saptadhatur nava panchakoshaha. Nava saptadhatur nava panchakoshaha. I'm not the Saptadhatu. See, here you can say Sthula Sharira is being talked about here. What keeps the Sthula Sharira or the physical body in its proper shape and in a proper way so that all the various components of the physical body function in a proper way? They are called as the Saptadhatus or seven kinds of tissues, which we call in our in medical language connective tissues. There are certain tissues means cells or parts of the body, which are meant to keep all things, the whole body in its proper shape and function. And it is said that they are saptadhatus. There are seven kind of dhatus there which are responsible for keeping this sthula sharira in a certain way functioning properly. Asti. Asti means what? The bones. Then we have got majja, the bone marrow, medas, the fat, mamsaha, that is the muscles. Then we have got rasa, that is the fluids in the body, the plasma, the fluids, we call various types of fluids in the body. Raktaha, the blood, this is also a dhatu. Shukraha, the fluid which is necessary for procreation. So these are the sapta dhatus. Now, sapta dhatus are also in Ayurveda, they talk about seven elements also. And of course, minerals. Minerals. Our body also has minerals. Calcium is there, copper is there, zinc is there, so many elements, so many metals are also there. But basically saptadhatu means these connective tissues which keep the sthula sharira well connected for a proper functioning. So this is the only indication where we get the indication of the sthula sharira. That means nava saptadhatuhu. I'm not the saptadhatus. I'm not the seven kind of connective tissues which keep the sthula shariram in a certain way functioning properly. So an indication that I'm not the sthula sharira also. Specifically, sthula sharira has not been brought about here, but saptadhatu we can say indirectly Bhagwan Shankaracharya is talking about the sthula shariram. Nava panchakoshaha. I'm not the five koshas. If you divide the entire anatma, you can divide it into Sharira Trayam, Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. Or in the language of Taittiriya Upanishad, you can divide it into five layers or five koshas. Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha. Therefore, Navapancha Koshaha. Here also an indication of Annamaya Kosha also comes here. So we have to take indirectly by saying Panchakoshas, the Sthula Shariram or Annamaya Kosha also is included in that. Then Navakpani Padau Nachopastapayu. So these are the Karmendriyas. What are the karmendriyas? The organs of action. Vak, speech. Panihi, the hands which do the work of, grahanam, holding. Then padav, the feet which do the action of gamanam. Upastaha payuhu, upastaha, that is the organ of procreation. Payuhu, the organ of excretion. These are all the karmendriyas, also a part of the Sukshma Sharira. So the first two verses are talking about I am not the Sukshma Sharira. So here he has dealt with, Bhagwan has dealt with what? The Antakaranam he has dealt with, the five organs of perception he has dealt with, the five Karmendriyas he has dealt with, and all the Vayu Vikaras Prana he has dealt with. Therefore, I am not the Sukshma Sharira is what is told in the 6 lines of the first two verses. Na Vakpani Padav na Chopasta Payuhu. I am aware of my hands, I can see my hands. I am aware of my speech. The speech or Vak Indriya is an object of my perception. The hands are an object of my perception. The feet are the object of my perception. And the Upasta and Payu Indriya are the objects of my perception. And whatever is the properties or all whatever vikaras there or properties are there or whatever gunas are there, they belong to that particular organ. It does not belong to me. The attributes and the properties belong to them. Then they are also panchabhautika. So drishyatvat, bhautikatvat, sagunatvat. So all the organs, panchavayus, then panchanyanendriyas, panchakarmendriyas, and also the chatvari antakarana. This entire Sukshma Sharira, here Bhagwan says, I am not applying these three principles. Drishyatvat, Bhautikatvat, at the same time, Sagunatvat. They have properties, they are the objects of my perception, and they are actually the karyas or products of the five bhutas, panchabhutas. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am that Chit Swarupa. Chit means what? Chaitanya Swarupa. Ananda Swarupa, Ananta Swarupa or Purnatva Swarupa Atma Rupaha. Shivoham Shivoham. I am the most auspicious one because these are all that I've seen, this entire Sukshma Sharira is Anatma. Jada. What is Anatma? It is Jada. But then this Anatma is functioning as if it is sentient. It is functioning as if it is sentient. The Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, together in unison are functioning as though it is sentient. Sometimes it is difficult for me to accept that the body mind sense complex is Jada. How can you say the body mind sense complex is Jada? It is sentient. It pains me when I pinch myself. And it is functioning as a unit as if it is a very, it is a sentient unit. So, who am I? I am that consciousness which gives, which lends sentience to the entire Sukshma Sharira. Therefore, I am auspicious. Shivoham, Shivoham. I lend existence and consciousness to the entire Sukshma Sharira. In my presence, the entire Sukshma Sharira is able to do its activities. In my Sannidhi, it is said in there is a work called Vakyavritti, Sannidhi Matrena, Yasya Sannidhi Matrena. In the mere presence of me, all the sense organs and the entire Sukshma Sharira and the Stula Sharira, they work and they do their respective functions as if they are sentient. As if they are sentient. That is why in an Upanishad called as the Kenopanishad, Atma I am described as Shrotrasya Shrotram. I am that consciousness behind the ear because of which the ear functions as a ear. Shrotrasya Shrotram. Manaso Manoyat. I am the mind of the mind. I am that consciousness because of which the mind functions as a mind. Vachoya vacham. I am that consciousness because of which the Vak Indriya is able to function sentiently and properly. Okay. So pranasya pranaha. I am the prana of the prana. I am the consciousness behind the prana because of which the prana is functioning. Yasya sannidhi matrena, in whose mere presence the entire Sukshma Sharira is made sentient. Sukshma Sharira borrows the sentience, borrows Chaitanyam from Atma, and the Sukshma Sharira functions as a very, very perfect sentient unit. Therefore, who am I? I am the Chit Swarupa Ananda Swarupa Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa Atma, the most auspicious one. I am the auspicious one. Shivoham, Shivoham. It is in my presence that the whole body mind sense complex becomes active. Like when the sun rises, mere sannidhi matrena, merely in the presence of the sun and sunlight, the whole world gets up and comes into activity. Similarly, by the mere presence of me, in close contact with this body mind sense complex, this entire body mind sense complex becomes sentient and is able to get into its action, which is it is supposed to do. So, with this, the Sukshma Sharira details and just a mention of I am not the Sthula Sharira has been dealt with in these two verses. In the next two verses, Bhagwan is going to talk about the properties, the gunas or the attributes which belong to this Sukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira, which I am not. The second thing he is going to say, the attributes or the properties that I observe are not mine. They don't belong to me, the Atma. They belong to the Sukshma Sharira. They belong to the Sukshma Sthula Sharira. He's giving more stress on Sukshma Sharira here. He's not giving too much of stress on Sthula Sharira because we have already studied that in Tattva Bodha, in Atma Bodha, and in other words. So here he's talking about these things in the next two, three verses. So we will take the third verse, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, we will take up in the next session, which we should be able to do it quite faster than today because today I wanted to give the basic, that teaching behind this Atma Shatkam that we are taking and also the next stotra that we'll be taking. So I thought I should explain in detail, what are the principles of Dritrisha Viveka before going into it. नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्थाशाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.